Hi, my name is Kristin and this is Kristin Kraves Books. So I desperately wanted to film this video yesterday, but we experienced something called a thunder snow, which was really new to me. That is when you have a thunderstorm, but it's snowing. And I actually took a clip of this and I will insert that here. So as you can see, it was actually really cool, but obviously not ideal for filming. It was really dark and very loud. So I'm happy to report that it's a beautiful day today. The snow is all melting and it's put me in a really good mood, and it's a perfect note to film this video because I love doing this video. I did this in 2022 and I took new releases from 2022, compared the covers between the US and the UK editions, and it was just such a good time. And so I thought I would do that for 2023 releases. I might do this again later on in the year as we get more and more covers, because the covers we're getting this year are gorgeous and there are a lot of differences between the covers that I'm seeing, and it's gonna be hard for me to choose because some of them are so beautiful. There's just nitpicky things about why I prefer which one over the other, and I will say that I often prefer the UK one. So we'll see if that is true here. I'm gonna leave a link or a list of all of the books that I am talking about down below, and you can copy and paste that into the comments. Let me know which cover you prefer, if we agree or disagree. I think that would be really fun, and let me know who comes out on top for you, the US or the UK. So we're gonna start with one that is already out and is already getting a lot of buzz, and this is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I think the US covers I'm going to put on this side, and I think that you probably are more familiar with the US cover. I think that this is a really clever cover when you think about the context of the book, because it's following a brother and sister who have to sell their parents' home after they die, and their mom was like a doll collector, and I believe the dolls are haunting this place. So the fact that the house on this cover looks like a dollhouse I think is brilliant. And then I have to say that this UK cover is just not it for me. As much as I typically prefer the UK covers, that is not true for thrillers and horror and mystery. I don't know what it is. They really make their mystery thriller covers very generic, and I would say that this is what this one is. I get what they're going for with a giant price tag on the house. It just doesn't work. It doesn't scream horror to me either. I think you would pick this up and get the wrong idea. So the US wins for me on this one. Moving on to the book that I actually finished this morning, and I'm still working out my thoughts on it, so I will talk about that in a future video, but this is The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is a gothic horror, I would say. Not as much fantasy as you might think, considering it is in a fairy loop box, but the US cover is really beautiful. There is something about women's faces on book covers where they're peeking through and there's flowers around them. I think I said this in last year's video as well. That is like a really common image that we see on book covers, but it always works for me, and I like the stare. And when you read the book, you understand the context of this character and the like appealing quality that she has. But then you look at the UK cover and it's more of a pattern. The colors are perfect. They really encapsulate that gothic vibe. I like the keys crossing on here. I just think if you put these two covers in front of me, the UK one would call to me more. I think it captures the tone of the story more. As much as I do like the character that is depicted on the US cover, I think that it's just very generic. That could work for many books. I think you could probably say the same for the UK, but it does tell you the genre more. This screams gothic horror to me, so I think it works. So we're even right now, and we're gonna move on to one of my most anticipated romances of the year, and it's The Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon, and that title is just adorable. And if you look at these two covers beside me, they are similar in a lot of ways. Again, this is something that I've noticed on covers lately, especially these fantasy romances or romances in general, where you have a border made of flowers with other little elements put into it, and we're seeing that a lot. But I like it. It's appealing. I think it's really eye-catching. I think I like the US one in this case because, first of all, I think the yellow is more attention-grabbing than that turquoise, though I do love turquoise. And I think that the border is more effective in this case because you have more witchy elements in it. If I look at this here, it has like a salamander, it has a moon, a snake, different potions, some candles. I just think you get the witchy vibe from that one in a way that you don't in the UK one. It's just flowers. And I do like the characters in the UK one that they're standing far apart and looking at each other, and on the US one they're back to back. But I just think the characters are more charming in the US one, so I have to give it to the US here. And I really do have to pre-order this book because I'm so looking forward to it. Moving on to one that I was sure I was going to give to the UK, no questions asked, until I saw the covers, because typically when it comes to Jennifer Saint, her UK covers are so far superior than her US covers. But her 2023 release is called Atalanta, and while the UK one is as gorgeous as all of her others, and I bet you it's going to be even prettier in person with the foiling and stuff that I know that they do, and I really liked the characters on here. You really get the Greek myth vibe. I will say that the US one is better than some of the ones we've gotten in the past of hers. I really like the character with the bow and arrow in the middle of this one. I like the blue tones. I like the border on the top with the waves. It does scream like a badass heroine in Greek mythology. So I'm torn on this one. I still think I have to give it to the UK just because I know that's going to be so pretty in person. I think there's more details in here. I'm liking like the deer and that dog, and there's a boat and stuff. There's more to look at. And the orange is more eye-catching, but I will say as far as the US Jennifer Saint books go, this one is my favorite so far. So I would love to know your thoughts on that one because I'm really torn on that one. Which one do you prefer? Once again, we are tied, and I think this next one's the hardest one. This is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi, and they're both so stunning and so entirely different, and I'm tempted to get them both. That is the issue that I have when both the covers are so pretty. So the US one, you have to admit that this is pretty epic. I like the illustration of it. The cartoony vibe that you kind of get from it works for me. The huge octopus taking over this sailboat, or this pirate ship, it just works, and the vibes are right. You know that would look really cool facing out on your shelf. But then you move on to the UK version, and this screams like the UK for me because they always have these really intricate designs. I find they're really more focused on font, and I love the font on this one. The font on the US one is pretty basic. I like the waves. I like that it's like a mirror image on here, and I like that there's actually a lot of detail behind the title and the font. And I think that the more you look at it, the more that you see. But I have to go to the US for this one because, come on, how could I not? Just look at that cover. It is so cool. So US is up 3-2, but we're moving on to another Greek myth retelling, and I will say that the UK normally wins when it comes to Greek myth covers. They know the vibes, they do it right, and I don't think that this is an exception here. So Clytemnestra, I do think that the US cover is interesting. I liked the flip image of the woman. It almost looked like a playing card. I'm liking the columns. You do get the Greek vibes from this, but how does it compete with the UK one? I like the way that they did the text on this one. I like the leaves going through it. I'm liking the gold color. I just know that this is going to be stunning in person. I'm wondering if Waterstones has done a special edition of this because I bet you it's beautiful. And I like the border around it, so I have to give it to the UK, though I do think they're both pretty, and I think they both capture the right vibe of it. I do think the UK just does Greek myth covers better. I try not to put too many sequels on here, but I couldn't resist doing this one because it's just so pretty, and I love the first book. The first book was Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and this one is The Shadow Cabinet. I have the UK edition of the first book, and it's beautiful, and the UK edition of the second book is so pretty. I'm loving the bright turquoise. This is the Fairy Loot edition, to be fair, but this is, look how bright this edition is. So I'm expecting that the UK one will be just as bright and in your face, and I'm all here for that. And I didn't love the US edition of the first book so much, but I do really like it for the sequel. The hot pink writing against the black really pops. I love that. The big moth in the middle with the moons really works for me, so I'm kind of torn on this one. I do think I have to go for the UK one just because of the brightness of it all. And look at the illustrations behind there, the details in there with the seahorses and the skulls. Like, that is pretty epic. And I like that they put the tagline on there. It says, "Something's wrong at the heart of government." So I love that. So I do have to give it to the UK, but I think that that was a strong showing for the US. So it's now 4-3 with UK in the lead, and I have a feeling that they're gonna pull ahead with this one because this is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher, and I tend to prefer the UK editions of her traditionally published novels, and this is no exception, though I do think that the US one is quirky and fun, and honestly I'll probably end up with that one just because obviously I'm in Canada. We typically get US editions and it's easier to get my hands on, and I want it as soon as possible. And I think the vulture in the middle there with the old school wallpaper, it's a vibe. It gives you an idea what this is about, and I do think that T. Kingfisher's horror is often a little quirkier, so I think that works. But let's look at the UK one. It is so freaking pretty. It's got the same vibe as The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, the UK edition. These like purples, these tones that are more muted and dark and just give you this feeling of gothic feeling. That's really what it's giving you. It's giving you horror, like pretty darkness, and I love that. And then this skull knocker that's obviously on a door to a house, it works. I love that. I think that this is so cool, and it's a cover that T. Kingfisher deserves because, you know, I love her. So I will give this to the UK. Another book that is already out is Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, and both of these covers are beautiful. I love all the details on these, but I think that the US one, something about the more muted tones, just the vibes are stronger for me. I think if you put those both in front of my face, that's where my eye would go, and I think a lot of that is the illustration as well. Like, that dragon just pulls your eye in. All the scales and the colors on the scales, it's just so pretty and intriguing. And there's no denying that the UK one is gorgeous too. There's so many creatures on here, which I typically love, but it seems more childlike to me. I think this is YA, but I just think that if you looked at the cover of the US one, you'd be more interested to read that story than you might be for the UK one. So I have to give this to the US. This next one is also going to be difficult. This is Spice Road, and they're both beautiful. As I said, I love like a woman's face on a cover, but I think that the way this one is done is even more intriguing and mysterious and captivating. I love everything about this. Her hands with a little bit of magic coming out of them is so unique and so well done. It almost feels like it's glowing off the page, which I really appreciate. But then you look at the UK one and it's like you're looking through a doorway into the desert, and the big sun behind that and the raven. I just think that that is really captivating as well. I like covers that have some depth like that one does. So I'm really torn on this one. I'm actually tempted to choose the US one because of her hands alone. I think that that is just such a great touch and so well done. So I'm gonna give it to the US. Once again, we were tied, and I feel like this is how it played out last year. I'll have to go back and rewatch that. But moving on to one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I don't know that this is on a lot of people's radar, but Claire Fuller is one of my favorite authors, and this is A Memory of Animals. And hands down, the US cover wins for me. The animals on here are just adorable. I'm loving, again, the tones. I think more muted tones seem to be in on covers this year, and I'm really for it. Is this a deer standing in water? I think that is so cool with all the fish around its feet. That is very intriguing. I don't know what it has to do with the story, but I think it's really beautiful. And then the UK cover, though I like covers where a woman is underwater like this, it's nothing special. I like that lime green font though. I think that is kind of fun, and I have a feeling that the UK one probably captures the tone of the story better, but I have to give it to the US. I'm throwing in a twist here because this is a case where the UK and the US have the same cover, but Canada has a different one because this is a Canadian author, and I just had to do this. I had to give 1 point to Canada. So this is VenCo, and this is like a witchy story, and I think it's obvious which one wins. Canada wins. I like that Canada is more like, almost like a tarot card. I love the gates opening with the vines everywhere. I think that's a really cool cover. And I can't even really make out what's happening on the US UK one. I guess those are finches flying around. It's just not that impactful. So I had to give one to Canada. had to show for my country. I love this cover anyways, so I just had to throw in a little trick there. 2 more and we will have a winner. So, City of Nightmares. This is what I'm really struggling with because I think both of these covers do really interesting things. Again, I think the US one is more muted, darker in tone. It has that depth. I'm noticing that a lot of these covers have like a circle or something in the middle that has some depth to it and draws your eye and takes you through the scene, which I really like. And I love that skull at the bottom with like the wings open. I think that's cool. But then the UK one says welcome to the City of Nightmares, which I love. And it does look like it's glowing off the page. That city is so intriguing. You want to go there. It's almost giving like Wizard of Oz vibes, and I'm intrigued about it. But I still think I have to go for the US, which I do think means US wins, but we'll do the last one anyways. Because I don't think I've seen a cover quite like that before, but I'd be happy with them both. I think they're both really well done. And then the last one is actually my next read, the book that I'm picking up today, and this is Wayward, and I fell in love with this cover, this US cover. The vintage feeling behind this crow or raven is so beautiful, and you get mushrooms and other creatures in here. There's a beetle, there's butterflies. I just think that this cover is absolutely stunning. And then the UK one doesn't really give me much. I do like that bright blue. I think that bright blue is pretty. And again, there's like a moth behind there and stuff. It just doesn't have that vintage impact that the US one has. So again, I have to give it to the US, which means that the US has 8 and the UK has 5 and Canada has 1. So the US has won this, which is really surprising to me. I just always think in my mind that I prefer UK covers, and a lot of the time I do, especially when it comes to fantasy, but not in this case. And if you know of any other covers where the US and the UK covers are different, specifically 2023 releases, let me know in the comments because I want to do this video again. Once again, I will leave all of these books in the description so you can copy and paste. Tell me your votes and which country won for you. Let me know if you gave Canada a vote, and thank you for support. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.